A student, yeah, I was that. Not a very good one either, but anyway, a high school teacher, and so of course I have to stand, and I probably even have to move around because it's just genetic. But first of all, I want to tell you that looking out at all of you today makes me want to cry. And Gaye can tell you this, that when we started Women's History, and it came from the Commission on the Status of Women. I was the director. We had the first Women's History Week in Sonoma County, followed by a parade, which I was terrified that we would do because I was afraid that the press Democrat would say, "Women, take to the streets." and we were funded by the county supervisors, so you know this kind of whatever. I was the conservative one of the group. I'm sure you want to do this, but you know what? Helen Rudy and Helen Putnam, who were then on the Board of Supervisors, along with the Cloverdale Women's Auxiliary Guard, led the parade along with the Girl Scouts. So we kind of made people less fearful of who we are. Anyway, from there, we went on to take the leadership of the country. In 1979, I attended a conference, took all of our goodies back with us, and asked this conference that was held, very, very prestigious, women who had been elected to office, who were the president of Girl Scouts, president of NOW, Gerda Lerner, who was the noted women historian of the time. I asked them to consider doing a national Women's History Week because we had been so successful here. They went for it, full game, and just because I talk fast, but 5 minutes is still not very long. They went for it, and these women all had connections. Many of them knew President Carter. They'd been at the Women's Conference, right? So in February, when I was at the Commission on the Status of Women, answering the phone, I answered the phone, Commission on the Status of Women, and the voice on the other side said, "This is the White House calling for Molly MacGregor." And I said, "1 moment, please." And put them on hold because the White House hadn't ever called me before, and funny thing, they haven't called me since. Anyway, it was Sarah Weddington, who was an attorney in Roe v. Wade. She was a special assistant to President Carter. They were calling on us, they were calling me to tell me that President Carter was going to issue a presidential message, because he hadn't gone through Congress yet, there hadn't been time. A presidential message to the American people to pause and remember the extraordinary contributions of American women. And we were a go from there. We had Carter do that. After that, Barbara Mikulski, who was in the House of Representatives at the time, she introduced a resolution for the next year. Because remember, because the whole focal point was around March 8th. March 8th is International Women's Day, and we wanted to be around March 8th because we wanted to be the international connection between and among all women. We wanted to celebrate working women, and we wanted to make sure that it was multicultural. We were talking about all Americans. We were talking about a specific group, although they kept saying that women were a special interest group. 52% of the population were a special interest. So anyway, with that, Barbara Mikulski introduced it in the House, and okay, now hold on to your seats. And in the Senate, because it needed to be a co-resolution in the House and Senate, Orrin Hatch of Utah introduced it in the House, in the Senate. And I have to say, you know, we all change as time goes on, I guess. Oh, okay, I won't go anymore. But Hatch, because he's a Mormon, he's real interested in genealogy. Is that my back? Am I talking too fast? No. I don't really think I need this microphone, but I'll use it if you want. Anyway, Orrin Hatch with Barbara Mikulski, the only resolution they ever co-sponsored. But it was perfect for us because people were afraid of us. You know, Rush Limbaugh and people like that had been really effective in creating this word of feminazis and all that stuff that we supposedly hated men, especially, and children, I guess, deliberately. And it was all of that. And so we needed to have this broad base support that we were talking about all women. Women who worked inside the home, women who worked outside the home. This was about all women. And having Hatch and Mikulski, it was perfect. She was a female Easterner there was a liberal, and then we have Orrin Hatch, who was a male Westerner conservative. So we were talking about everybody. And what happened for the next several years is they, each year they had to go back to Congress because March 7th changed every year. But by that time, by 1987, 14 states had declared March as Women's History Month. And so we went to Congress and said, gee, you don't want to be on the sidelines, you want to be the leaders, right? Anyway, yeah, we wish. Anyway, they did it. And again, it was Hatch, and I have to give Senator Hatch credit because Strom Thurmond was damned if he was going to have us support, recognize that women had ever been servants and slaves. I mean, give me a break. Yeah, Strom, tell me about it. Anyway, because it was Hatch and because he was a conservative, in 1987 we had our first National Women's History Month, and we've had it ever since. Yeah. Woo! And the National Women's History Project at the time grew up providing the resources, the materials. Anyway, our goal was to write women back into history, and any way we could do it in the schools, in the communities, in the churches, whatever, we did it. And by we, I'd like to acknowledge a few people who are in the audience today. For instance, the co-founder of the National Women's History Project, Paula Hammond, if you would please stand and be acknowledged. Suzanne, where are you? If Suzanne would please stand. And Suzanne kept my life together as first as a volunteer and then as a staff person for forever. And then the National Women's History Project, remember, we didn't have any foundation money or any kind of corporate support. So we did with volunteers, and I like to recognize two of those. My friend Teresa, who got up in the middle of the night to be here today, drove from Antioch. Where are you? Teresa, are you over there somewhere? There you are. And my friend Penny, who's been with us from, I think, absolutely the beginning, right, Penny? I just want to acknowledge how don't worry, I'm coming to you. How one person can make a difference, because it's the inspiration that comes to our life from knowing what others have done. And when you acknowledge Lisa Graves for doing that, I want to acknowledge Lisa Graves for coming into my life about 2 years ago. I've been thinking about retirement for a long time. Anyway, Lisa Graves came to our office as an intern, and then she continued on the staff. She's now the Assistant Director of the National Women's History Alliance. She heads up the California Suffrage project that she would be glad to share any information with you about it. And I am going to be retiring in December 31st, 2020. That was a great year to step down. And I'm happy to tell you that Lisa Graves will be the next executive director. I've taken over my time, but I just want to say one more thing. We gave you all a copy of Women Win the Vote. We have thousands more, so contact us. We have we've been working on promoting suffrage for the last 2 years, and we have 2 other gazettes that are out of print, but they're available on our website. So please go to our website. There's many categories across the website, but one of them is Centennial. If you go to the Centennial one, you can download all of them. And my God, thank you all for being here today. Doesn't that make you just want to cry? Yes.
But let me tell you, I'm going to be smiling through my tears. It is great. And there are a couple of things. First of all, I want to say it's a shame that you lost your voice. But also, I want somebody back there, a couple of people back there are Rosie the Riveters. Yes. Would you guys stand up? And in the And, you know, you talked about the Helens, Helen Rudy and Helen Putnam, who were the first women on the Board of Supervisors, and I would like to recognize Donna Bourne, who's here, who was the first mayor, woman mayor of Federal.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I know everybody probably has their cell phone turned off. I just got an alert, Sonoma County Sheriff alert, mandatory evacuation ordered for the City of Windsor, of Healdsburg and the Town of Windsor due to the Kincade Fire.
Yeah.
What would I want to know about this?
On another note, Petaluma is now taking anybody that needs to evacuate.
The shelter in Petaluma.
And there is also some
Windsor and Healdsburg. Mark Field and Mark West are supposed to be on standby. They might be next.
Watch in West County and the Northwest area.
Okay.
That's a lot of them.
But actually, the last thing I heard, and it's not to say that this isn't true because it moves fast, but it was coming up on the Ida Clayton Road, and if you don't know where the Ida Clayton Road is, it goes up the side of Mount St. Helena, so that's quite a ways over there. Quite a ways to the-
42,500 acres.
Big pardon?
42,500 acres.
Yeah, it's going
25,000 this morning.
Yeah. Anyway, that's, you know, while we're here having a good time, bad things are happening. I would like to know if the council, if the panel members have anything that they would like to ask another panel member. You've obviously all learned a lot. Really, yeah, no, I'm serious. Do you have any particular question for anyone here? Besides me. Well then, how about the audience? I'm sure that there are questions out there. And you can address them to the panel, or you can address them to a specific panelist. Way back.
I'm interested in knowing, my name is Susan Rauter, I'm active in the League of Women Voters in Sonoma County, and I'm interested in knowing if you, any of you in your various capacities, particularly in this Commission on the Status of Women, are really encouraging women in Sonoma County to run for office and to serve on commissions. Because of the legacy we've heard about this morning, we have had so many women run for office in this country, particularly in 2018, and so many women, more women serving in Congress. It's just phenomenal, but it's in part because of this legacy. And I was just wondering if anyone in any of your capacity, or even friends of yours, you're encouraging to apply for positions on these various commissions, as well as run for local office. I hope you are.
We definitely are. The Commission on the Status of Women has a junior commissioner project that we do every year, and it's women 14 to 18 years old. Am I on?
Yeah.
And there's 16 of them this year, and they're working on issues, and they're learning how to hear their voices, how to make their voices heard, and also how to become advocates. And they've worked on, this year I think they're working on human trafficking. They have a project for human trafficking. They have one for body positivity, the high school girls, and they're very interested, and they're from all of the high schools in Sonoma County. Plus, we also have an ad hoc committee that is specifically devoted to the empowerment of women and encouraging women of all stripes to get involved by signing up for boards, commissions, because there's lots of vacancies when you go on the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors websites. There's all kinds of vacancies on all kinds of boards and commissions, and we're encouraging every woman that we run into and that we know, and we have listening sessions, and we have people who come and visit with us, present to us the issues that are going on in their area of responsibility. For instance, we had scheduled in October Madeline Keegan O'Connell to come for the YWCA to talk about their programs and how they reach out and help women who are in abusive situations. And we encourage all women to go to our website and fill out the survey, because that is going to give us the information we need in order to promote women and to promote their issues and policies at the Board of Supervisors level, and also to work with the state legislature to promote policies that will affect us right here in Sonoma County. But yes, we're definitely encouraging all women to step up.
I'd like to be a little more specific. We actually have an empowerment ad hoc, and they've been holding workshops throughout the county. I'd say every 3 or 4 months in a different district, specifically bringing women that are in leadership roles in that area and speaking to guests about how they can, well, their experience as well as how they can participate. Plus, that ad hoc has created a list of openings that is available on the website.
And that's through the Status of Women Commission on
Yes.
Yes.
And the website is on the flyer that's outside. And also, I had a bunch of bracelets out there, and I think they're all gone, so I see some people have them on. And that has our website on it as well. So please go to that website. And we also have a card that gives you that, as well as use your phone to go on your QR code reader, and it'll take you right to the survey that we're trying to get the answers to. And I have a few of those as well.
I might add that, hi, I'm Leslie Graves, not related to Lisa Graves. We just met each other today, believe it or not. But we do like each other a lot. There might be some distant relation there. But the Sonoma County 2020 Women's Suffrage Project, that many of these organizations, I believe all, are participating in, and many others within the audience, is a year-long project that is not only celebrating the women's suffrage movement, but also committed to intersectionality and committed to creating programs that explore how women can be more inclusive and how we can reach out to women of color, to trans women and non-binary individuals, those that are really not necessarily incorporated into all of our civic engagement. And if you look at our website, www.socowomen2020.org, and that flyer is on the table, and we are part of the National Women's History Alliance, and we are a chapter of the California 2020 Women's Suffrage Project. That is how we got our name. That we actually have some programs throughout the year that are going to have women engage, and especially marginalized women. So we are going to have discussion groups on disenfranchisement, on intersectionality, as well as getting more women in those marginalized groups to engage civically, whether that's voting, writing letters to the editor, participating in commissions, and being an elected official. So definitely more women need to get involved, all of you.
Way back.
Peggy, you had mentioned the listening sessions. How do people learn about that?
There again, it's on our flyer. It's on our flyer. It's the website, and also, as I said before, our next listening session, or a live listening session, is on Monday, December 2nd, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Sonoma Valley Regional Library, which is in Sonoma. And also, it tells you who you can contact for further information on that. But looking at filling out where's my little card? It's here somewhere. Anyway, filling out that card, there it is. Doing the QR code takes you right to the survey, and we really want to hear from every single girl and woman, young women and every stripe, to fill that out, because that's how we form our recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, is by participating in those live listening sessions, and also the forms that you're filling out. And we encourage everyone, and I think even men have answered some of our surveys, and I think it's important. What is it that you see as the needs of women in your community, as well as your own needs, to help us fill out the full picture for them?
I may just run for office, I'm so.
Yay!
Yes, ma'am.
What are we doing to work toward getting women parity with pay with men? We're still behind 100 years after we have a vote, and that, I guess, is my question. There are many households where the woman is the head of the household with children, and their pay is not commensurate. So what are we going to do about it? This next year should be the year.
I think, Molly, that's yours.
Well, in many ways it is, because this year is a huge, huge push forward for the Equal Rights Amendment, you know, going back and there are many national organizations who are working exclusively on pay equity, but the really good news is it seems to have finally drifted or come into major culture ideas. That is like, you know, it used to be, oh, those women talk about those things. And now it's, especially given the discrepancy in wages, you know, and in wealth. Lisa was just telling me about a program that they're gonna have on, it's called, I already forgot, but it's all about the Equal Rights Amendment. See, so many people have no idea. They think we have an Equal Rights Amendment. Oh, sure. Or they think that, you know, we're protected under equal protection under the law. It's just not so, and it's certainly not so when it comes to economics. Not just in terms of women's wages, but also in terms of inheritance, just, you know, property rights, the whole gamut. And so I'm really happy to tell you that there is a huge movement that what they call it the 3 states movement, because we ended just 3 states short of ratification, right? But it's all about precedent. It probably won't happen during this administration, if you know what I mean. but there's a lot of work going on, and if you're interested in getting involved, you could either, you know, just Google ERA or Google Pay Equity or whatever. But I'm telling you that I know, because I get emails all the time from people who say to me, how come you keep talking about women's history and not about the important things like the Equal Rights Amendment? And I say, well, we do talk about the Equal Rights Amendment because we're always talking about the power that comes, but they are very active. And Lisa, what did you say the name of that series is going to be?
It's Mrs. America, and so it follows the whole ERA campaign, and so there's very big Hollywood names like Elizabeth Bank from Hunger Games, who is playing different roles like Gloria Steinem, and it's that whole, well, I mean, it's great for TV, right? It's drama. It's Phyllis Schlafly and Gloria Steinem. And so, but the thing is, like, I remember I had to tell Molly this, is that for whatever reason, and I'm always trying to figure this out, my generation learned that being a feminist was bad. And so it has slowed down the movement. And then as my generation has gotten older, and with the Me Too movement, I didn't call myself a feminist until I started working for the National Women's History Alliance, because that was not what my generation did. And then you have a lot of younger women. So I think the thing all of us in this room can do is make sure people know that history, because I didn't know it, and all I knew was that Gloria Steinem was this woman who made all this noise, and she was, you know, like a problem, and I didn't understand the history because the way the media portrayed it. And so the way you counteract that is what we do. You tell the stories, and so make sure your granddaughters and your nieces and your sons and all the people in your life that are not of your generation know that story, because you might think they do. I promise you they don't, unless you've been telling them all along. So, like Molly and I were talking about, to get it into the public media on a television show where people are going to watch this with big names, will just be a huge shift. I mean, that's just how that stuff goes, and so it's really exciting.
The name of it again?
It's called Mrs. America, and I couldn't find the network. I just heard an interview with Elizabeth Banks, and she said it was actually the most depressing project she'd ever done, because for her, to know that we've been working on this so long, like you said, for 100 years, and she was unaware how long and this struggle. So she learned about the struggle by being in this show, and so it's just backing up what I'm saying.
And many of the leaders of the three strategy movement are women who have been at it from the beginning. They haven't given up. A lot of young women have joined them. But can you imagine when Lisa said, oh, that was really depressing for that actor, and I thought, yeah, well, it was really depressing for us.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't help myself.
Oh,
I had to stand up because we're talking about people not knowing. I do a radio show called Women's Spaces on KBBF 89.1 FM, and let me tell you something, if you go onto my Women's Spaces website, www.womenspaces, you'll see interviews with Helen Rudy, I had Gaye LaBarron on, I had Molly on. Who hasn't been on Women's Spaces? So I really want to encourage you to support the program. I think I'm one of only 3 women's shows in the United States that focuses totally on women. And it's very, very important. It's very important to support it, to support the bilingual station. And also, I'm also the president for the National Organization for Women. And this is one of the oldest organizations in the United States for women. And it's so important where there's only 4 of us, believe it or not. We have done so many things, these 4 people, we need more support. So I want to encourage people to check now out.
What's your name?
Pardon?
What's your name, please?
Pardon?
Your name.
Oh, I'm Elaine Holt. It's your
There's my main person, just share it's FX, this is America's Young, not the FX.
I wanted to share that Elaine's organization now has put out a wonderful calendar for 2020. And it's the original limited edition that's here today. It's back on our table with our t-shirts if you want to get one. They are selling quickly and they're going to be out of them. So if you want to get one of these fabulous calendars, visit our t-shirt table before you leave today.
Yes.
Back to her question and the subject of pay equity, I'm Pam
Talk.
Chaffin, and I'm here from the American Association of University Women. So I was speaking on Elaine's radio show last week, and AAUW has a program in place. It's called Work Smart Online. Don't have the website with me right now, but I think you go to AAUW, Work Smart Online. You could be employed right now in a job that is not advancing you. And you could do this program this weekend and have the tools to go in on Monday morning and be your own advocate, how to ask for a raise or ask for a higher position. And don't just wait for them to promote you, because they are probably not going to promote you if you're not in a union job or something like that. So it's Work Smart Online, and it gives you the tools.
Thank you very much. A lot of good information. Yes, ma'am.
Is the league part of the Natural History Women's Museum effort in Washington, D.C. to create a museum on the Capitol Mall?
Is the League of Women Voters, you mean?
Yes.
I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
But Molly.
There's a new commission that actually was funded by the government, like I think it's 2 years ago now. It's a congressional commission that was for women's history and to work on women's history. And their funding was like, I don't know, $1 million or whatever. So of course it ran out a long time ago. They did a lot to promote the Women's Museum. And now I think that concept has really been kind of taken over by the Smithsonian. That the Smithsonian plans to do a special installation or whatever about just specifically women's history.
Yeah.
So, but that commission, even though they're no longer funded, are still functioning. The National Women's History Museum, their work is done mostly online. They have a phenomenal website that you should all consider seeing. But that's part of where it's going. We're still working on it. But all those groups in Washington, D.C. are very, very supportive of each other. There's a new exhibit that will be up for the August 26, 2020 called The Turning Place. And that exhibit, it's going to be forever. I mean, it's not just an exhibit for the 26th, but The Turning Place is where it's built right at the park of the Acknowledgements workhouse, which is where they took women as political prisoners, and when they wouldn't eat, they force-fed them. And if you've ever seen Iron Jawed Angels, you have an example of what they did, literally taking tubes, forcing them down the throats of women so they wouldn't starve to death. Anyway, they were political prisoners, and because they were political prisoners, they refused to eat. This turning point, which the League is also very much involved in, is going to have, I'm trying to say, very large areas all around it that will give the history of the Occoquan. Occoquan also was used for prisoners before then, because one of the critiques of the suffrage movement is that it was there was racism. Yeah, there was racism in the women's movement, but this is to try and in some ways put that in context of the fact that not all white suffragists were racist. Some of them were ignorant, there's no question about that, but so this turning point exhibit will be just massive, and it's something that school kids are going to come to. And it also is being supported by the Virginia National Parks Service. So even though we won't have exactly a women's museum, there's so many wonderful things that are now happening in DC that people can actually go to and learn from and celebrate and recognize. When they said this group of women or whatever, it's like most women's lives.
Women in the body.
Women in the body, because women in the body are the majority of us. You know, it's like this is how things get done, and those women were willing to be force-fed. The atrocities that were committed in the name of our country, because these women had the unmitigated gall to pick at the White House. And one of the things I also wanted to say for people that might be a little confused about how come they were doing all this work in 1910 when we're talking about the 100th anniversary now being 1920. California passed women's right to vote in 1911. We were the 6th state to do so. When the national amendment was passed, we're going to celebrate this in November. I think we were, which state, the 9th or 10th state to ratify it. But the women in California, see, this is what scared them to death. It was the whole West that organized and pressured the East. The East and those institutions were so afraid of women. But when we didn't vote the way they wanted us to vote, got them a little nervous. So anyway, that's a long story to say the kinds of, because there's nothing, the lacking of women's statues and women's memorial around the country is, you know, it's just unbelievably pitiful. But there's so much work that's going on to redeem that. And one of the things that's going to happen at that turning point is they're going to have 3 statues. And one of them will be of Mary Church Terrell, who very often, she's an African-American woman who at the age of 93 sat in Washington, D.C. at a counter. So it's like, Gay, there's no stopping, you know? 93, 105, whatever.
One last question. I didn't have a question exactly. I just wanted to say there's the Belmont Hall House, which is not on the National Mall, but it's right across from the Capitol on the other side. If you go to DC, you cannot miss it. It's an amazing National Park Site museum now, but it's where a lot of work was done. Alice Hall, and the house was bought by Alva Belmont, so it's called the Belmont Hall House.